engineering data, that is, well test or production data, is rarely integrated into the static model. The absence of this engineering data means that our permeability model lacks important information about the dynamic behavior of the reservoir. In other words, it might not match the flow capacity. This opens the possibility of arbitrary adjustments in permeability during dynamic modeling. CONNECT-PermMatch integrates the flow capacity, kH, from this engineering data into the static model. More specifically, the permeability field. The integration of data is done by adjusting the original permeability with the mismatch of flow capacity between the model and the engineering data. The procedure of CONNECT-PermMatch is as follows. First, it calculates the flow capacity, kH, around the selected wells from the static model. This is done automatically by the plugin. Then, it combines the flow capacity from the static model with the flow capacity from engineering data, which is provided by the user, in order to calculate a flow capacity ratio, or kH ratio. This kH ratio is then interpolated throughout the reservoir grid, and multiplied by the original permeability field in order to obtain an updated permeability field. The kH from the static model is calculated by summing together the kH values of the grid cells that are penetrated by a well in the same geological zone. CONNECT-PermMatch can be found in the Property Modeling tab in Petrel. The box on the upper left-hand corner contains the basic inputs that the plugin needs in order to run. The Selected Wells checkbox allows the user to select the wells that will be used for the kH ratio calculation. If the checkbox is unchecked, then all the wells available in the input pane will be used to populate the kH ratio table. On the other hand, if the checkbox is checked, then only those wells which have been selected in the input pane will be used in the table. The selected permeability drop target is where the permeability field of the static model is dropped. By dropping the selected permeability into the plugin is able to calculate the flow capacity of the model at different geological zones for the selected wells. So for example, for well 12 we have zones A, B, and C. And corresponding to each zone we have the calculated flow capacity values under the kH sim column. The one layer per zone grid is used by the plugin in order to do the interpolation of the kH ratio values. In order to create this grid, you can refer to the user manual. The kH well testing column is where the user can input the flow capacity obtained from the engineering data. Doing so generates a kH ratio automatically. This kH ratio can also be edited manually. The global kH column allows the user to input one kH well testing value that will be used along with the sum of the kH sim from all the geological zones to compute the kH ratio. So for example, for well 15, let's assume that we only have one well testing flow capacity value that we would like to assign to all the zones. So we start by first typing the value into the kH well testing column, and then checking the global kH checkbox. What the plugin does is that it first sums up all the kH sim values corresponding to all the zones of that well, and then divides the value provided in the KH well testing column, 15,000 in this case, by that sum. That ratio is then given to all those particular zones. The include checkbox allows the user to disable or enable certain geological zones in the calculations of the plugin. The optional inputs box allows the user to control the maximum and minimum allowed KH ratios. It also gives the user the ability to truncate all the KH ratios to a normal distribution. This can be done by checking on the Truncate to Normal Distribution checkbox. What it does is that it assumes the KH ratios are normally distributed and then calculates a standard deviation to finally truncate all the KH ratio values so that they lie between plus minus 3 standard deviations from the mean KH ratio value. The Use Original Data for Modeling checkbox, when checked, tells the plugin to use the data that was saved as original data for calculations. To save the data from the table as the original data, at any point in time, the user just needs to click on the Save as Original Data button. The Kriging Parameters tab allows the user to select the appropriate kriging parameters for the interpolation of the KH ratio property throughout the grid. The histogram plots display the histogram of the currently displayed KH ratios versus the histogram of the data saved as original data. This could be useful information when trying to choose the kriging parameters. Once all the data has been filled in the KH ratio table, the user can click Apply or OK, and two properties will be generated. The KH ratio property and the updated permeability field property. So there you have it, the original permeability field, the KH ratio property which has been interpolated throughout the grid, and the final updated permeability.